What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And Lou from Pacoima, man, every time I think of this case, I am baffled. I am baffled. And it's like, it's just one of the craziest all around things I've ever heard when it comes to Northerners and prison and politics. And so, this is the conclusion of a story that I've told in a couple of parts. And as I've told these parts, I have learned more. So very, very brief recap, but I'll link to the videos in the upper right hand corner so you can go back and catch up. The first one I did was like 2 years ago. And that's when I learned about Lou's background. So Louis C. Morgan is a brother, right? A black dude from Pacoima who caught a murder case in the 80s. 1980, in fact, is when the lady lost her life and came to prison. And at some point, fairly soon after he came to prison, he decided he wanted to run with the Northerners. So that in itself is unusual, right? A black guy from Southern California who comes to prison and decides he wants to be a Northerner. But that's what happens. And he's embraced. He develops a leadership role. And, you know, he's a bro. He's a Northern Structure, Nuestra Raza member. When in 2000, I'm in Salinas Valley on A Yard. And at the time, that's a GP, general population, 270, level 4 yard. And he comes over directly from C facility. Okay. And C facility was a solid 180 design, level 4 yard. And I had gotten a letter from Chongo from SAC, right? Johnny, stating, hey, the homie Lou and Mousie's coming over. You know, it's all good, bro. They come with our warmest regards. And I guess their 180 designation had dropped down to 270. So they came over. And so there wasn't a real background check on my end when they hit the yard because they're coming directly from a well-established yard that in fact has people over there that are more seasoned than I am. And so he was cleared with the quickness. And come to find out when I do this video, when I did that video 2 years ago and did some homework, man, there was a psychic medium involved in finding the body, which was his victim. And then him and these other guys had wound up doing unmentionable things to this woman and all kinds of crazy. And it was on Unsolved Mysteries and all sorts of shit that I didn't know at the time, right? So that's video number one. And then I've told the story more recently of when I went to Vacaville for surgery and Lou kicked it off with the others. So that's video kind of number two, and that's a story in itself. I'll link to that also in the upper right-hand corner. Go check it out. And so here is the conclusion. And at some point in the future, I'll do kind of a deep dive story and put all these pieces together, when I get a chance. I'm working on a deep dive story with the Menendez brothers right now, looking at their first trial and their second trial and kind of some of the differences. Personally, I don't believe whatsoever that they were abused in the ways that they claim they were. I'm going to talk about their attorney and kind of her history because I believe she's the one that introduced this. So that's just a longer, again, kind of deep dive video that I'm working on. But I want to get something out to you guys. So this is the end of the Lou story as we know it. And there's some specifics that I'm not entirely clear on. And so maybe you guys will be able to tap in the comments and let me know. I really appreciate all the support that I get from you guys, right? So Lou's in AdSeg, kicked off with the others. He locks it up in AdSeg. In my very first video, I said he locked it up in debriefed. And I misspoke. I spoke out of turn. He did lock it up. I added the debrief part because I knew he had gotten validated and figured if you're going to lock it up, you might as well debrief, right? But apparently he didn't. So he goes off to the Pelican Bay SHU. And while he's in the SHU, he tries to plead his case and get back into good graces with the fellas. It doesn't work. But I know some people and have spoke to some people since that first video who were involved in that review process, shall we say. And so they're like, yeah, bro, he had no action. And even they didn't know about the craziness of his commitment offense. So I don't know how that flew under the radar or what. It's really kind of mind-blowing. People, slip through the cracks, and we know that with every group segment. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. But yeah, it's just wild. It's just fucking wild. So anyways, he's in the SHU, And at some point, he gets kicked out of the SHU. I think it's around the same time that they were emptying the SHU program. So that'd be like around 2015, I guess. It may have been a little bit before. And he gets kicked out to High Desert. And this incident that I'm going to tell you guys happens either in High Desert or Susanville. I'm not entirely sure. Both of those prisons are right next to each other. High Desert is a more secure facility. It's a newer facility. And then Susanville is lower, classification. So I'm pretty sure it's High Desert. But nonetheless, the facts around what happens to him remain. When he comes out of the SHU, and mind you, again, this is a black dude, right? He's a black dude. He's dark-skinned. So at first glance, you don't assume, oh, that must be a northerner. Plus, he's from Southern California. So you really don't guess that must be a northerner. He comes out to the yard after all these years in the SHU program, and he's claiming Muslim. Now, I have some experience dealing with the Muslims in prison, and from my experience, and I'm just speaking for myself, they ran a tight program. They're not a gang or anything else, right? It's a faith-based group, but they run a pretty tight ship. And previously at another prison, we had a guy come through who was labeled by the administration as a homeboy. He was labeled as a northerner, and he was Raza, right? So Mexican dude comes through, and he's like, "Hey, bro, I'm Muslim, actually." So we're like, "All right, cool, run with the Muslims." And one of the Muslims that got it, I meet a guy that was kind of a voice for them, and we had a very good relationship. He gets at me and he's like, "Look, bro, I'm gonna need you guys to do what you do with this dude, right? Your background check process, your investigation, everything else. We need for him to be cleared by you before we embrace him. Because if there's any baggage with you guys or any unresolved stuff or anything else, once we fully embrace him, we're going to defend him. And there's no sense in us having a conflict with each other over this cat if he's got issues, right? So you guys do your thing, and once you're kind of done with him and sort of release him almost, like, look, we got no issue with him, everything's cool, then we will, fully embrace him and everything be copacetic. We just keep it pushing. So in that case, it was easy. He was, a new guy. This was his first yard. And so it was no problem. And again, this wasn't at Salinas Valley. This was at Solano. But, it was all cool. And they wound up embracing him, and he ran as a Muslim. And I don't know whatever happened to him later. It didn't really matter. But so that's an idea, though, for you guys of how the Muslims tend to operate. They rock for their people, and so but they also aren't looking for problems. If you bring them problems, you got a problem. But that's not what they set out to do, of course. And they're pretty diplomatic, and they know how to move. They know how to politic. They do their thing. So Lou comes out, he's claiming Muslim. The Muslims embraced him. But he's not going to yard. The only time he comes out is to go to Muslim services, right? Which I believe would be on a Friday normally. And that's it. Other than that, he doesn't hit the yard. And there's some northerners on the yard that are like, man, I think that's that guy that, I think Lou's on the list, But High Desert, Susanville, historically is a difficult prison to communicate with because it's in the middle of fucking nowhere, way up north. So there's some question marks, but they're just questions. And folks don't really want to move on those questions because he's a Muslim, and so now you're involving another group segment, so to speak, because that's what the Muslim car is. That's their own independent group segment. Eventually, the fellas find out, hey, nah, man, that dude got to go, right? That dude has to go regardless of what he's claiming to be. He's got, we got an issue with him, meaning them, the Northerners, they got an issue with him, and that needs to be addressed. Now, I don't know. I can make some guesses. I don't know exactly what the conversation, or even if there was a conversation with the Muslim. I'm suspecting that there was, okay? But what ultimately happens is two Northerners, right? Two Nortenos or Northerners, whatever, wind up signing up for Muslim services. But they ain't Muslim. But it doesn't matter. You sign up for religious services, you get to go. And because Lou would not come out for that, apparently he didn't go to jail. I don't even, if he was in High Desert, they might not even have been getting jail. Might have been self-ed. But so they sign up for Muslim services, and they go to Muslim services, and they butcher Lou, blast the shit out of him, right? Just stab him up. He does not lose his life, but he probably wished he had at some moments in that. And Lou had been around. Lou was no punk. He was a weirdo with weird charges and cowardice acts, and Lou was a lot, right? But he knew how to defend himself. He had put in work before. He, all that stuff. But they blasted shit out of him. And that's the end of Lou, right? Lou winds up going S and Y, and that's where Lou remains. Some people had jumped in the comments and said, that they had seen Lou on the S and Y, they were with Lou on the S and Y, and he was a booty bandit. I don't know anything about that. There's comments on a YouTube channel, so I don't know who's making those comments. Obviously, I never seen a dude on the S and Y, so I don't know. Could be true though. The dude is just the craziest freaking story that I've heard. But nonetheless, so they go blast him. Now there's some talk, right, that the brothers retaliated and wound up ending the life of a Northerner. Now in that area, right, the Susanville High Desert area, there was a Northerner years back who wound up, I believe, losing his life at the hand of the brothers. But I've heard another story about what that's about, and about that being an issue that kind of stems from ADSEG and maybe the ADSEG yard and stuff. So there's question marks in there. I'm not saying that I know exactly what happened, but what I do know, what I do believe, is that Northerners went into Muslim services and butchered Lou. I don't think that happens without the brothers knowing about it. Again, the Muslim group is not a passive group. They don't run around and look for problems. But the idea that they won't blast you is mistaken. Okay, because they will. And so I think the information I've gotten is maybe some people conflating a couple different stories up there involving Northerners and blacks and blurring the lines a little bit. You guys let me know in the comments. I know a lot of you guys have done time, and so reach out and if you could fill in some of the blanks, man, I'm happy to hear it, or get at me on the DM on any social media, Homie Hangout. Shoot me an email, Joshua@thehomiehangout.com. And see if we can clarify this. And if so, then I will wrap that into kind of the deep dive that I do about this dude, his case, and his experiences in prison. But so, I hesitate to think that there was no diplomacy and the Northerners just decided to go in there and blast a dude. I really feel like a conversation happened. If a conversation happened and the Muslims were like, nah, bro, ain't gonna happen. That's our guy and we're rocking with him, which I don't necessarily see them doing under these circumstances. But if they did, then those Northerners wouldn't have been able to go to Muslim services and butcher somebody without getting butchered themselves in return, right? So I think it was more a case of, that's your issue. You guys take care of it, and we'll kind of turn the blind eye because of the circumstances, right? But if that's the case, then I would not expect there to be the retaliation. And like I said, I think that retaliation, there's some wires crossed there. I think that was actually rooted in a different issue between Northerners and blacks. But there you have it. That's what ends up happening to Lou. Lou comes out the SU program claiming to be a Muslim, and he ultimately gets whacked by the North for his transgressions years prior, and ends up then on the SNY side doing whatever they do over there. So again, quick little story, right? And I noticed normally I give you guys, very concrete, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. This one has some question marks and some wishy-washy, but the basics of it are what they are, right? And so help us move in excellence, man. That's what homies do. Again, quick little story. I'm working on some bigger stories that'll be coming out throughout this week. But try to get a video out every day. And so Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. And subscribe, man. Hit the bell, all that good stuff. You guys stay tuned.